Right, this is the Matecam-X1 4K-H1. But before we take a look at the camera, let's take a look at what else you get in the box. Nice little waterproof case, usual kind of thing with the standard GoPro type mount thing on the bottom. User manual in English and Chinese, looks pretty adequate. Selection of mounts, handlebar mounts, standoffs. Usual kind of GoPro mount that slides into this kind of stick-on mount, if you've not seen them before, with self-adhesive pad on the back that goes onto a helmet or skateboard or whatever. Another little mount here with a 1/4-inch tripod mount and a screw to tighten it up. Got a nice little velvet bag to keep the thing in, because it is quite tiny. Don't want to scratch the lens. You've got a USB charging lead. You've got an FPV lead. You've also got another lead here for video out with a micro USB. Lens cleaning cloth. One neat little thing you get with it is this little remote. Quite a neat little remote with a little tag on it, so you can put it on a lanyard around your neck or something. Dead easy to use, just turn it on. You saw a couple of flashes there, press the button. It says in the manual that it will work with video or stills, but as far as I can see it only works with stills, but quite a useful thing. Maybe they'll change that with a firmware update. Another thing you get, and you've got this little bracket here which actually clips on like so, if you can see that, so that the camera can be suspended on a mount on a quadcopter or whatever. Pretty neat. And of course you can rotate it and use it this way or that way. I think I put it on a bit of string as well though, for safekeeping. Oh, another bracket here, again for use with the FPV mount, and that's got a tripod mount on the base. Right, so take a look at the camera. It uses the SONY IMX206 sensor, which is a good sensor, and the Novatech chip. My first video results have been really good, I must say. Records in 4K interpolated, 2K, and of course 1080 at 60 and 720 and so on. So on this end you've got micro USB slot, micro card goes in there. That's a reset hole. Not supplied with a card, but apparently it will take up to 128 gig. You've got a micro HDMI out there. You've got some ventilation holes here. On this end you've got a mode button, power button, and shutter release. And again you've got some ventilation holes. On the front you've got a lens, very small and very simple camera, but very capable from what I've seen of my first results. And on the back here there isn't a screen. What it has got is this shiny metal here, which I think is a heatsink for the processor. I'm not sure that a screen's that essential on these kind of cameras, because when it's used for FPV flying, that's first person view if you didn't know, you're looking at a screen on whatever, a monitor, and if you are using it as an action cam, mostly it's mounted on your helmet so you can't see where it's pointing anyway. The lens is a bit narrower than many action cams now, which are around the 170 mark. This is 160. Does have gyro stabilization, and it can do all the usual kind of stuff like time-lapse, loop recording, if you want to use it as a car cam, and so on. That covers the basics of it. Now to turn it on, press the power button for 4 or 5 seconds, and you see it runs through a little start-up sequence there, and it's starting, in my case, in 1080, 60 frames a second. As you can see, it's just got these little icons around it. Probably the simplest camera I've ever used. Here you've got a mode button, and here you've got the shutter release. So to scroll through the modes, that's 720, that's VGA, that's stills, motion detect. Press again, you're in 4K mode, which is interpolated. Press again, you're in 2K mode, and then you're back to 1080. So, as I say, very simple to use, but to change settings you do have to use the app. Now at first this might seem a bit of a drawback, but how often do you change your settings while you're out and about? Generally speaking, I use 1080, 60 frames a second, and that's what I use. Right, well, let's look at the app then. You see on the back of the manual you've got QR codes for iOS and Android. It's also on the website too. So scan that and install in your phone. Right, well, I've already installed it on my phone. So to turn on the Wi-Fi, again, couldn't be more simple. All you do is press and hold the mode button, and you'll see the Wi-Fi indicator light comes on. Turn on my Wi-Fi and go into settings, and you'll see there Matecam, no internet detected, blah blah blah. Password for this is 88888888, but you can change that once you're in. So connect. Do I want to connect? There's no internet. Yes, please. And then we go into the app. As you can see, it's connected because it's looking at me, looking at the camera just there. So obviously I can stop and start video remotely, like so. Start recording. That's recording to the card, not recording to the phone. Stop. Let me tell you what's on the screen here. It tells you a Wi-Fi mode, battery mode. You can change the video format from MOV to MP4. I'm in 1080 at 60 frames a second. Obviously in video mode. You can change it to camera mode. Switch to mobile detection. So you can actually put it in mobile detection, and it's just started recording because it's looking at me and that's moving, so that shows that works. I'll take it out of mobile. That mobile detection basically means if you put the camera somewhere and the scene changes or somebody walks in, it will start recording. So change settings in here. Change the Wi-Fi password, language. It's got parking monitoring, power on record. Obviously that means it will come on when you power up. Auto power off is turned off at the moment. I'll put it on, I'll leave it as off at the moment, but 2 minutes auto power off obviously means the camera will shut down if it's not being used. Light frequency, rotate photos, video output, field of view. You can change field of view in this from wide to middle to narrow, although generally you lose quality because you're just using a smaller part of the sensor. Sharpness, exposure, contrast, saturation, white balance, format card, firmware update. They are still tweaking the firmware on this, so it's wise to keep an eye on firmware changes. Come back out of that, and then you've got the video settings menu, which gives you video file format, as I mentioned, MOV or MP4, video resolution, 4K, 2.7 to 1080, video frame rate, time-lapse, audio volume, turn the date stamp on and off, loop recording, gyro on and off, impact sensitivity, that's parking mode, and video ISO, that is film speed. So pretty comprehensive menu. Once you've done it, you just go back, change the menu, and it's changed. So remote starting could be very useful. And I don't know if you can see, but it's a very sharp image on here. So that just about covers the app. Easy enough to come out of it. Press return key to exit. So turn off my Wi-Fi. So to get back to the camera, very easy to operate. Battery life's getting on for 2 hours. It's an internal battery, but it would be replaceable if at some point you needed to, although Matecam tell me they use a very good quality battery. What else to say? Maybe it's time to look at some video tests. Right, this is 1080-60 with the gyro turned off. And quite low sun, so not quite as good as sometimes. Be interesting to see how good the lens is on the peripheries of the picture. Still 1080-60 with the gyro turned off. And here's a little bit of a test into the sun.
Leo Richard, Robert Shaw,